So, thanks very much, everybody, for attending. And just to do a little recap, last week we discussed some of the different regions of South Africa. As we've already discussed, it's a huge country, a very vast country with many, many different amazing things to come and do and see here. We looked a little bit last week at the Western Cape, which is this region down here. We looked at the Eastern Cape here and the various things to do in the area, KwaZulu-Natal, and finally we looked a little bit at Mpumalanga, including the Kruger National Park, and of course the beautiful surrounding areas, the panorama route around Mpumalanga. And I said to you last time that this week we would focus a little bit more on the national parks within South Africa. Again, this is quite a tricky task to do in half an hour. South Africa has about 20 national parks. So we really have very many national parks, and these all offer something completely different. So probably today we will focus more on the national parks that offer a big 5 game experience, because I think that's what most people are interested in. But we also have numerous national parks around the country which really just offer the most beautiful geographical sites, beautiful, stunning landscapes, huge open spaces. And we have beautiful national parks, which are some of them more remote and difficult to get to, but really just incredible areas to be in. For today, I'm going to focus primarily on the more well-known national parks and those that offer a big 5 game viewing experience. So we're going to start off with Kruger National Park because I know that's the one that most people know. So just to give you some indication, Johannesburg would be your international entry point into South Africa, okay, which is over here. And from Johannesburg, it would be about a 5-hour drive to the southern region of Kruger, which is, here's Kruger National Park over here. So to the southern region of Kruger, it's about a 5-hour drive. Or alternatively, there are 4 commercial airports that one can fly into. So, right, just to give you an indication, this is the whole of the Kruger National Park over here. And situated just around the Kruger National Park, which is this area over here, are a whole lot of the private game reserves. So I guess I'll just start off by talking a little bit about the Kruger National Park and what is the major difference between Kruger National Park and going to the private game reserves bordering on the Kruger National Park. So as you can see, Kruger is a huge, big stretch. It's actually about 360 kilometers by about, I think about 60 kilometers wide. And it's got lots and lots of rest camps scattered throughout Kruger. So the main difference between Kruger National Park and the private reserves is the fact that you can drive your own vehicle throughout the Kruger National Park. So people go into Kruger, you would book into a rest camp, or you can go in as a day visitor, and you stay on the roads and you drive yourself through Kruger. So if you go into the private reserves, which are these reserves over here, no vehicles are allowed to drive. You're not allowed to drive yourself around the private reserves. So normally speaking, we would organize you a transfer into those reserves, and you would then go straight to the lodge, and from there you would be taken around in open game vehicles with a game ranger and a tracker. So again, here you'll be driving yourself around. Here you'll be taken around in an open game vehicle. The other difference is if you're driving around in Kruger National Park, you cannot go off the roads. So you stick with the main tar roads and the roads that are designated driving areas. Whereas if you go into the private reserves, the vehicles are allowed to go off-road. Again, you have rangers and trackers with you. So it does mean that you're able to get far closer to the game if you're staying in the private reserves. The trackers are absolutely incredible. They track the game using the spoor, and they'll go off road to take you really close to the big game, which is the most phenomenal experience.
Nikki, can I just interrupt you a while?
Sure.
Yeah, so you were saying that if for Kruger National Park on the main part and not the private reserves, so say for example, if you see a hunt that is going on maybe 400 meters away from the road, from where your vehicle is, you cannot just drive straight towards the hunt, right?
No.
Okay.
No, you can't. So the rules within Kruger, there's quite a lot of rules. Obviously, the rules are there to protect the wildlife, but no, you cannot go off the road and go and follow a hunt that's going on, or any of the big game. So that is the benefit of being in the private national reserves.
Right. Okay. And I also understand that on Kruger, maybe say, for example, if you spot a mating pair of lions on the road, and then you get like 20, 30 vehicles all trying to come along and all surround the lions and trying to see that action happening at the same time, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So that is the other thing actually that I wanted to mention.
Sure.
There is no restriction on the number of vehicles. So it's exactly that. You can have the most amazing sighting in Kruger, but there could be 20 vehicles around that same sighting, everybody trying to see the same thing. So in the private reserves, they normally they have a restriction on the number of vehicles allowed at any sighting, which is normally, depending on the reserves, but normally around 4. So they use those their radios to radio in a sighting. But definitely no more than 4 vehicles allowed. You've got to wait for other vehicles to pull away from the sighting. The nice thing about that is you never ever feel crowded. You never ever feel like there's just loads of cars and you're fighting for a sighting at all. That's one of the amazing things about the private reserves. Absolutely. One of the other big differences, Julian, is that in the SANParks properties, which is the camps, the properties within Kruger, there's quite strict regulations with regards to the times that you've got to be in and out of camp. So, for example, you leave the camps as soon as it starts getting light. So it's basically after sunrise, and you get in before sunset. So no people are allowed on the roads after dark. Now, in the private reserves, a typical day in the private reserve is quite different. So in fact, the best time to go game viewing is early mornings and late afternoons. So this is when the game is most active. This is when the big cats are hunting, is early in the morning and late afternoons. And during the day, you find, especially in the summer months, the game are really just finding a tree to lie under and go to sleep. So the best time, the times that you really want to be out in the game vehicles is just as the sun is coming up and as the sun is setting.
Right.
And in fact, maybe what I should just do now is just give people an indication of what a typical day in a private reserve actually looks like, and in comparison to Kruger. So a typical day in a private reserve, in one of the lodges in the private reserves, you would, depending on season, in summer season, you would have a wake-up call at around 5 a.m. You would meet at around 5:30 for tea, coffee, and some light snacks, and then you would head out. So you'd head out into the bush just before the sun is coming up. And it is just the most amazing thing being out in the bushveld as the sun is rising up over the bushveld. And really and truly, the game is active then. The animals are coming down to the rivers to drink, down to the water holes. There's just so much happening in the bush. The sounds of the bush are just so beautiful. The sun is rising. It's such a wonderful, wonderful place to be. And then you would normally get back to the lodges at around 8:30, 9 o'clock, in time for a great substantial breakfast. During the summer, you'll then go out again later in the afternoon. So it gives you the whole day just to relax, to be sitting around the pool, to be reading a book. Some of the lodges offer walking safaris after breakfast, so you can go off into the bush with a guide and ranger in search of game. And then normally at around 3:30, 4 in the afternoon, you would meet for tea, coffee again, and quite a substantial amount of snacks. In fact, you're going to find I always say when you're in the lodges, you eat your way through the bush as well, because it seems to me like you roll from one meal into the next. You then go out sort of around 4 in the afternoon on another game drive, and most of the time stop for sundowner drinks and snacks in the bush, which is also the most amazing place to be. And then back normally around 7:30 in time to freshen up before dinner. So it's quite a long day, but as you can see from what I said, when you're going into the actual national parks like Kruger National Park, there, of course, you are limited to being on the roads only basically during the night, so after the sunrise and before sunsets.
Right. So essentially, you get about 6 to 8 hours of safari drives if you're on the vehicle.
You do. You get around 3 hours in the morning and around 3 to 4 hours in the afternoon. It is very, very dependent about as to what you see out there. So, I must say the one thing is that there's never a rush. If you're on your way back to camp and you see the most amazing sighting, or you see a lion kill, then that's where you stay. You just stay there and you get to, you just be with the animals. So the lodges are generally fairly flexible. They don't like to push people, and you really come back when you're ready in a lot of the cases.
Right. Okay. So for our photography friends in the group here today, generally the time where we go out on safari are actually reserved, for the best time to be out there. So as long as you have the right equipment, as in your SLR or DSLR or mirrorless cameras, with a range of handheld, maybe up to 400 mm, you are pretty well covered. Yeah. So obviously for some instances, you may be able to bring a longer lens, but you will actually need a support on the vehicle. Okay, yeah. So if you are doing that on the private game reserves, it's actually easier than on Kruger Park itself. So naturally, with all the goodness, Nikki, I'm sure that the prices between the two is different, right? It won't be the same.
Absolutely. No, most definitely the pricing is very different. But I'm going to give you an indication just moving on from here.
Sure.
In fact, just before I move on, one of the things I wanted to discuss, and I'll come back to you on that, Julian, one of the things I just wanted to mention was the access points into Kruger. I mentioned to you that there are 4 airports. Just to show you sort of more or less where those airports are, there's the Kruger and Mpumalanga International Airport is down here. You've got Skakuza Airport around here. And then you've got Hoedspruit Airport and Palabora Airport. So it's quite important, and this is where a lot of people get things wrong, that you make sure that you're flying into the right airport, depending on which lodges you're going to, so that you don't land up with a 4 or 5 hour transfer to try and get to the lodge. This is where it's quite important to be speaking to people that know what they, what they're doing in the area. So to come back to, just to give you an idea here, Julian, you were talking about the different aspects of and the different price points on the accommodation. Certainly, just to give you an idea, again, this is just sort of a typical idea of what the vegetation looks like in the Kruger National Park. And this here is an indication of, now these are the National Parks Board camps within Kruger. There you get options of campsites. Then you get options of small rondables, such as these. And those come, some of them with small kitchenette bathroom facilities. Others are shared bathroom facilities and shared kitchen facilities. And then you get slightly bigger 2 and 3 bedroom chalets. But just to show you that these are fairly basic, most definitely, and really entry-level accommodation facilities. Okay, now just to show you in comparison. So this is Dulini River Lodge. This is one of the lodges in the western block of the Sabi Sands Reserve. And this is one of the luxury lodges within the what we call the Greater Kruger area, or the Sabi Sands Reserve. And you can just see the difference here. I mean, Delini is a lodge. It's one of my favorite lodges in that area. It's got only 6 suites, and this is one of the suites. This is not the full lodge. So you can see it has separate bedroom, separate lounge area, incredible bathroom facilities, the most beautiful wraparound decks with private plunge pools. They really focus on sort of more luxury in the bush. There's a huge focus on cuisine. So you know, and fine dining and wines. They have a spa. They have a gym. They focus on a lot of private dining as well. So moving their, you know, you dine in different place every night. They'll try and do sort of communal dining the one night, then take you out into the bush one night, then maybe do a private dining on your deck one night. It really is an incredible experience. The leopard sightings in this region are absolutely phenomenal. And certainly the density of game in the Greater Kruger National Park area is really, really incredible. So just that just shows you the difference here between some of the camps. Now, obviously, I've shown you here 2 different extremes of camps, from the more basic park sport camp right up to sort of the more luxurious camp, and then we get a huge range in between. Next week, we're going to be talking a little bit more in detail about how to select the camp that is right for you. And I think this is a question that I know it came up in last week's discussion. And it's a question that a lot of people keep asking me is, oh my goodness, it's so overwhelming. You know, there's so many game lodges in South Africa and so many amazing places. How on earth does one choose the right place for you? I think this is where it's really important to be speaking to the right people, and also we ask a lot of questions so that we can determine exactly what type of thing you're looking for, so that we can recommend the right place. So that's just a little bit about Kruger. And I'm going to move on to, this is another property called Rockfix Safari Lodge in the Timbavati Reserve. This is the Timbavati Reserve is again one of the private reserves adjacent to Kruger National Park. Possibly something to mention, which I didn't bring up earlier, and just to be clear on this, there's no fencing between the Kruger National Park and the private reserves. So the game walks absolutely freely between those two. The game viewing in all of these areas is absolutely exceptional, actually. But some people think that, you know, the Kruger National Park has got this game, and then, you know, in the private reserves, there's different game. It's not. It's all the same. It's one huge traversing area where the game is walking freely between them.
But Nikki, you know what? If I'm an animal, I will stay in a private reserve.
Why is that, Julian?
First of all, it's more luxurious. And second thing, I'll get lesser disturbance. Yeah, you know, it wouldn't be nice to have like 50 vehicles surrounding me, you know, while I'm doing something, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is the unique thing, and that is one of the amazing things about the private reserves. It's just that, you know, the lack of crowds in the reserves, in the private reserves compared to, for example, Kruger National Park.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is very well controlled. One of the things that I want to just show you specifically in this area, which is just, again, something that's really special and unique about being, again, in the private reserves, is the ability for them to stop and do bush dinners or bush breakfasts. Right. Julian, have you ever stopped for a bush dinner before in the middle of the bush?
Oh, yes, I have. Yeah, I've done that. Completely in the wild at night. Yeah. And they just set up small little lights, you know, around. Yeah, it's an amazing experience. Yeah.
It truly is, and it's just so unique, you know. And generally, they don't tell you. It's quite a surprise factor. It's quite a wow. You'll be driving through the bush, and suddenly they stop, and they've just got the most amazing setup. Tables are set up with lanterns. The whole bar is set up. And you just step out into this beautiful dining under the stars, looking at, you know, it's really gorgeous, sitting around the campfire. It's a very unique experience, and something that some of the lodges do really, really well. I must say, they really sort of specialize in that kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
Katerina is saying that the Rock Creek Safari Lodge looks absolutely fabulous. It's amazing.
It is fabulous. It really is. I think, you know, one of the things that I've both of the last two lodges that I've shown you, one of the things that I really like about them is they're smaller properties, which creates really a more intimate environment. And you'll see, you know, amazing when you go to these lodges. Often, you know, you're on a vehicle with people, and in the evenings they do give you the option to dine separately, but also it's really that sort of idea of communal dining and sitting in the evenings around the campfire together and sitting around a table together. Everyone's discussing the day and everybody's discussing what they saw, you know, during the day. And it sets such an amazing scene. You know, it's just the camaraderie and the wonderful chats that go on in the evenings is fantastic.
Right.
So I think that's a really great aspect of the lodges as well. And as you can see, really here you've got six rooms at most of these lodges, maybe 12 people all together in lodge, which makes it a really special experience.
Very intimate, eh? Very intimate place.
Yeah, really, absolutely. And the attention to detail because of that is incredible. That's the other thing that I love about these private lodges. It's big because they have such a small number of rooms. They place an enormous amount of attention on looking after you as the guest and really getting to know what you as the guest is looking for, you know. So you like, you know, a decaf coffee with 1 sugar in it, they will remember that that's what you like. You know, you like a decaf coffee with 1 sugar in it, and they won't have to ask you a second time because they've remembered it, you know. So, you know, and what wine you like and things like that. And it really makes, it's those small things that I think make such a huge difference to your overall experience, you know, when you're traveling.
Yeah. Okay. Nikki, may I just add a little secret here, you know, in the Timbavati area. So, you know, as you know, I've been to South Africa quite a number of times, and I've probably been to the Timbavati area maybe about 7 or 8 times now, you know. And the main reason why I'm there is because, you know, in the Timbavati region, there is the white lions. Yeah.
Correct.
So the lions that's famous because they are white, yeah, and not the usual color. Yeah, but the only thing is that although I've been there 7 or 8 times, you know, but I've never seen them yet. You know, I've seen some pictures, but I have not been able to photograph them, you know, myself. So there'll be more opportunities. Sorry. Yeah.
You'll have to come back.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely. So for you folks, if you are interested in something like that, okay, so this is a great area for you to consider. All right, yeah. So Nikki, back to you.
All right, so because I have to cover quite a lot of national parks, I'm going to move on from this area. But just one thing I do want to mention about the Kruger National Park, and it came up in conversation last week as well, is that the Kruger is considered to be a low-risk malaria area. So, and the reason that I mention that is because we're going to be discussing other national parks throughout Southern Africa as well. One of the features of the other national parks is that they are non-malaria areas. I guess this really makes a difference specifically for people. I think families tend to avoid malaria areas if you're traveling with children. But I just wanted to point that out, that these areas that we've been focusing on now in this area does fall within the malaria area of South Africa. So moving on, I really want to discuss in this northern region, I'm just going to focus on 2 other national parks for today. The one is, the next one that I'm going to look at is this area up here, which is the part of the Velgevonden Reserve, part of the Greater Marikeli Conservation Area. And I think one of the things that just to discuss briefly with you, the unique features of the Velgevonden Reserve. So in that area is the Waterberg mountain range, and this whole reserve. So you've got the uniqueness of the mountain range through it, which gives you a lot more You've got canyons and cliff faces, just a very different varying vegetation in that area. Again, it is malaria free, and it's about a 3-hour drive from Johannesburg Airport. So it's slightly closer for those people who have less time, or who are not wanting to do such a long drive. There are also charter flights which fly directly into the Belgefontein Reserve. But certainly it's an easy drive up there. So the lodge, one of the lodges that I'm just going to focus on in the Belgefontein is Mondoro Safari Lodge. And again, I could speak forever about so many of these lodges, but I'm just going to really focus on some of the unique features of this property. And I think one of the unique features here is they've got, as you can see in this picture, they have a waterhole directly in front of the property. But what makes this unique is they have built a tunnel, a 65-meter tunnel, which goes underground into a photographic hide, which you can see in the bottom right-hand picture here. So what makes this so incredible is when you're sitting down in the hide, you are at water level or at face level with the animals. This just makes for such incredible photography, as opposed to looking down, or at a distance. You really are face to face with the animals that come down to the waterhole to drink. And it really does make for incredible pictures. Julian, you've been in some of the hides before, I think, right?
Oh yeah, unfortunately I couldn't get there this year. I was actually thinking of visiting one of those and then doing the Milky Way at the back. So for those guys who's interested in astrophotography, yeah, this is a safe place, wonderfully safe place, because it's open 24 hours. Okay, so you could be safely in the hide at night, and then you have like the lighting coming down, okay, on the water hole. So as the animals come by, you can actually capture them together with the Milky Way in the background. Yeah, so next year when we get the opportunity to travel again, okay, South Africa, here we come.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, like you said, one thing that's great is because this tunnel is linked to the lodge, you can go down there any time of the day or night without having to worry about being in a vehicle or being escorted by a guide. It really is very special. And if you're sitting up on the deck up here and you see animals coming down, you really just to walk down and go and just be face to face with them. It's really, really incredible. Mondoro also prides itself on its cuisine, and as you can see, they really take pride in the way that they serve their foods and in the freshness and incredible menus that they come up with. It always amazes me, actually, considering the fact that they are in the middle of the bush and often so far away from places, what incredible meals these chefs can come up with. It really is lovely. I think one of this room here is their honeymoon suite. You can see it really is absolutely exquisite. And one of the other features that I just wanted to mention at the Mondoro Safari Lodge is their exclusive use villa. So I mentioned Mondoro, but there are quite a few of the lodges which now have exclusive use villas. This is something that is becoming more and more popular, in fact, throughout Southern Africa. And so, for example, the exclusive use villa at Mondoro has got 3 bedrooms. If you book an exclusive use villa, you get your private chef, you get your private butler, you get a private game vehicle. They have got a private spa and yoga room in the villa with a gym. And in fact, next to this is also the family unit. So, for example, if there's a group of 10 people traveling together, you could have total use of the villa and the family unit together. It's something that is definitely becoming very popular, specifically, obviously, now in COVID times, where people are looking for a little bit more distance and a little bit more privacy from other people. I've seen over the last while that this is something that I think in the future is going to become very, very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on from there, and I'm just going to jump back here to this map so that you can see where we're going. So from Johannesburg, I was talking to you about Welgevonden, which is directly sort of north. We are now heading west towards the Madikwe Game Reserve. Madikwe Game Reserve lies on the border between South Africa and Botswana. It was initially started as a project which was a combination with the local communities as well as government and private investors, and it's been an incredibly successful project. It really, really has. It's now, I really believe, one of the best game reserves in South Africa, and probably one of my favorites. It is again a malaria-free area, and I think you'll see, because of the fact that it's a malaria-free area, Madikwe has really specialized many of the lodges in family-friendly holidays, where they really have developed children's programs, and you know, it's where they entertain the children, and you know, so mom and dad can also just go and have a bit of a break. So right, in Madikwe, I'm going to talk about Jamala Madikwe, one of my favorite properties in the Madikwe. And I think this picture just really says a lot about the uniqueness of Jamala Madikwe. Again, this is only 5 suites, 5 luxury suites on the reserve, but you can see with the waterfall directly in front of the lodge here. You know, I think I say they specialize in armchair safaris, because really you don't even need to get into the game vehicle to go out on safari. The animals really, really come to you. And I think this just makes this lodge absolutely unique. There are many lodges, having said that, around the country, where really the animals are coming right up to the lodge, and it's just phenomenal actually being able to be in your room, in the privacy of your room, even sort of in your private plunge pool, and watching the elephants walk straight past. So I think that's you know, I think that's something that's really unique here, and you don't find very often. Again, Jamala Madikwe really specializes in their cuisine. They've won awards for their food and wine. They've won awards for their wine list and their cellar. And they have an incredible chef at Jamala, which really produces the most amazing meals every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yes, Julian.
so Nikki. Yeah. So the thing is that, yeah, we have seen 3 different reserves right now, right? Can you drive in the last 2 that you mentioned? Drive your own vehicle?
No.
I think a lot of people will be interested in that.
Yeah, no, you can't.
Okay.
So again, these are you can't do that. So to get into the Madikwe, you need to go into one of the lodges, and from there they'll take you out in private vehicles. Same thing goes for the Welgevonden. There is a game reserve that is sort of situated fairly close to these 2, called the Pilanesberg National Park. And the Pilanesberg National Park, you can go in as a day visitor and take your own vehicle. But in these 2 reserves, they are private. Okay?
Okay, great.
So,
yeah.
Again, and I know, you know, again, so I think really to try and pin down the differences between these reserves, it's really about all 3 of them offer the big 5. Welgevonden and Madikwe are both malaria-free, as opposed to the Greater Kruger National Park area. And I think a lot of it is just about the difference. Some of it is the difference in vegetation. So just to go back to the Madikwe Reserve again, I think one of the unique factors about the Madikwe Reserve is it is situated, because it's on the western border and situated against Botswana. It's part of the Greater Kalahari area, which is the Greater Kalahari sort of more desert landscape. So here you will see a huge diversity of game, ranging from your more desert adapted type of game like the springbok and the black-maned lion, etc. And then also in this area, you'll find the same sort of savanna type of the game that normally feeds on the savanna that you would see in the Kruger National Park. So you're getting huge diversities of game. The Madikwe Reserve is very well known originally, well, always for their the cheetah. There's a lot of cheetah in the area. There's a lot of lion in the area. The elephant populations are absolutely huge, and your wild dog populations are incredible. Whereas I would say in the greater Kruger National Park area, the leopard sightings there are really incredible, as well as you know, the other animals that I've just mentioned. So they all have their unique you know, unique factors, and we'll look at that really in terms of what you're trying to fit into your itinerary as to which one is going to be the best suited for you know, for your needs. Okay, right. So now I just want to focus a little bit on the game reserves in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think maybe just to quickly go back to this map of South Africa, actually, if you don't mind me zooting back to the very, very beginning again. So the region I'm now going to be discussing is this region down here. Okay, we were sort of up in this region here. We're now going to be on the eastern side of South Africa. Right, and I think the main reason one would go to KwaZulu-Natal, and I think this is, and I mentioned this 2 weeks ago as well, to me the most interesting factors about the game reserves in KwaZulu-Natal is the accessibility to so many other things in the area. So the Hluhluwe Umfolozi Game Reserve, which is this one over here that we spoke, that in fact we also spoke about a while ago, is the oldest game reserve in South Africa, and originally designed to protect the rhino species, the black and white rhino, which were going into extinction. But there are so many game reserves in this region. I'm not going to have time today to go into all of the different reserves. You've got the Hluhluwe, the Phinda, the Mkuzi, and you can see so many of them in the area. But what is really incredible here is the proximity of these reserves to the most incredible beaches, as well as the Drakensberg. So your entry point to fly into these regions would be Durban International Airport. Would be or Richards Bay, which is a domestic airport, but Durban Airport. And from there, it's about a 2.5-hour drive up to the Hluhluwe Umfolozi Game Reserve. But again, as I said, what makes this amazing is if you're wanting to combine it with the St. Lucia wetland area, it's a very easy combination trip. If you're wanting to combine it with the incredible beaches and the Cozy Bay Nature Reserve and the beaches up in this area, it's a fantastic combination. If you're wanting to combine it with the Drakensberg Mountains, and it's about a 2-hour drive, 2 to 3 hour drive to the mountains. So really, I said KwaZulu-Natal for me is like a world in one province, as opposed to a world in one country, just with so much diversity and the opportunity to really to create an incredible itinerary of varied interests. So last week we touched on the Umfolozi Reserve, and we looked at Rhino Ridge. I think I showed you a picture of Rhino Ridge Safari Lodge in the Hluhluwe. This is built up on the top of a hill. Somebody asked me last week how high this was up the hill. And I did get hold of them, and they said it's about 150 meters up. So you can imagine the views from there are really absolutely spectacular. This area also does incredible walking safaris, as you can see, where you go out into the bush with a ranger and tracker. And really, the walking safaris to me are just one of the most incredible ways to get into the bush. And obviously the focus here is so very, very different from being in a game vehicle, where a lot of the time you're looking for the bigger game. You know, when you're out on foot in the bush, you really are, you know, getting in touch with the smaller animals, the vegetation, the insects, and the rangers are just so incredibly knowledgeable. In fact, I can honestly say one of the most interesting safaris that I've been on was on a walking safari in the St. Lucia Wetland National Park, where the ranger was talking about the medicinal qualities of the plants. We were learning about termite mounds. It was absolutely fascinating, and I think people underestimate just how, you know, it would be, you know, to just think that you're going into the bush to look for the big five is really, you would only be getting half of the experience that you can if you go on foot. So that's the, in a nutshell, again, the KwaZulu-Natal regions that we spoke about. Now I'm going to head down to the Eastern Cape. So 2 weeks ago, we spoke about the Eastern Cape and Port Elizabeth being the entry point. And one of the great things about the Eastern Cape is it's a malaria-free area and a fantastic add-on for people who are wanting to do Cape Town and the Garden Route. So I would often sell the Eastern Cape reserves to people wanting to do a self-drive trip. You can start off in Cape Town, you can end off at one of the reserves in the Eastern Cape. You can easily drive it yourself, and it's, again, great roads and very, very safe to do this. So the Eastern Cape is a real conservation success story. It started off being, well, very originally, it was, you know, there was all well, it was a pure wilderness area. And then when the settlers moved in, a lot of this area was turned into farmland. And about, I think 30 years ago now, they started rehabilitating and buying up farms and converting it back to its original state of being a pure wilderness area. And that is where you now find the Eastern Cape. There are now numerous reserves in the Eastern Cape. The Addo Elephant National Park with its huge, enormous elephant populations. And then stretching out from there, we have Shamwari, we have Amakhala, we have Lalibela, Pumba, Kwandwe, Kariga, and many more that I haven't even mentioned here. So all of these offer a big five safari experience in a malaria-free environment. And again, as I mentioned, the great thing here is tagging it onto the end of a Garden Route Western Cape, Eastern Cape trip, which makes it very interesting. So again, I've just picked one lodge of the numerous lodges that I could speak about in the Eastern Cape. And I just thought today we talk about Shamwari. Shamwari was one of the very original game reserves, one of the first reserves to be rehabilitated. And now has got 7 lodges on the game reserve. And it's definitely a conservation success story. There's a huge emphasis on conservation on the Shamwari Reserve. They have the wildlife sanctuary there as well, and the Cat Foundation. And this is one of my favorite lodges on the Shamwari Reserve, and it's called Shamwari Bayeti Tented Lodge. Again, you know, in looking at all the different lodges, and it's one of the things we'll chat about a little bit more next week, is the difference between a tented camp and a different chalets type accommodation. But the tented camp certainly for me offers something quite unique. You can see that Bayeti has actually got a tented structure on the outside and then a thatched, sort of firm thatched roof over it. This again, one of the more luxury lodges. It's got private plunge pool, it's got beautiful decks, and just a really beautiful reserve to be in. So, and one of the, I think here again, one of the interesting features of the Eastern Cape is that it borders on the coastline, So with this, the biodiversity that you get here, the different biomes that you get here, makes it an incredible safari experience with huge diversity of wildlife and bird life here. And then finally, I'm going to finish off today with just heading down to the Western Cape. Now, the Western Cape is not necessarily traditionally known as a big wildlife area. So most people who come to the Western Cape come to see Cape Town and the surrounding areas of Cape Town that we discussed last week, and then the Garden Route. But I just wanted to include the Sanborna Reserve, because just to show people that for those people with who really want to focus on the Western Cape and perhaps have less time and are unable to get up into the north of the country, the Sanborna Reserve is again an incredible Big Five reserve. It is different to what you would get up north, definitely not with the same density of game. But I wanted to put this picture in just to show you the incredible landscape that you get here. And I think that sometimes, you know, we miss out by focusing all the time on the Big Five. We miss out on some of the other incredible features of some of these reserves in South Africa. And I think this picture just shows you here the incredible vastness, the huge African skies and the stars, the incredible stargazing that one can do, the bird life, the rock formations. This area was traditionally inhabited by the San people. You have incredible San rock art in this area. And to me, I absolutely love, you know, if you're looking for true wilderness, if you're looking to just be at one with nature, you know, the experience that one gets here is just absolutely incredible. And that's it, Julian, for today. I just wanted to end off with Sanborna just to say, you know, South Africa's got so much to offer. And we tend to focus on the Big Five, but it doesn't always have to be about the Big Five.
Right, yeah. Because there's also a lot of birds and other wildlife, you know, or even the small creatures that people could look out for.
Incredible, absolutely. Yeah. And we get a lot of birders coming to South Africa. The birding here is really exceptional. And as you mentioned, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, the astrologists are, you know, we have the huge vastness in the open skies is incredible for stargazing here. Yeah, that really is something beautiful to watch.
Yeah, there are still many safe places that you could go at night in South Africa and do astrophotography. You know, yeah, because that's one of the things, you know, that people are a little bit worried, especially in a foreign land. And then when you get out there at night with no one there and very little light, you know, you want to be sure that you are safe in a way. You know, and when you do your photography, you want to be able to see the Milky Way, to photograph it, and yet to be safe. Yeah, so that's one of the main thing. Yeah,
absolutely. And I must say, I mean, the rangers here are really, most of them are incredibly knowledgeable about it as well. And in fact, only too happy to share their knowledge on the Milky Way and the different stars. So it's really a wonderful experience to see those big night skies.
Yeah, I answered in the chat just now, you know, I mentioned that the guides in South Africa are really excellent, you see. And then the thing is that most people, they are probably not aware, you see, but game viewing generally, although people say that in wildlife, when you try to photograph wildlife or you try to spot wildlife, it's never guaranteed, which is true, you know. But with a qualified guide and a very good guide, your chances are dramatically increased. You know, rather than if you go out there yourself and you self-drive, it's actually harder to spot because you'll be concentrating on the road, and then at the same time you're trying to see where the wildlife is and it's hiding in the bush. And sometimes, you know, the lions will just be sleeping in the grass, you know, and the grass is so short and you will not be able to see them. Yeah, so that's how it is actually. Yeah,
without a doubt, Julian, the rangers are incredible. I mean, I have been on many a vehicle at night, and this still always is incredible to me, where the ranger suddenly will stop and they've picked up a tiny little chameleon on a branch in the middle, in the dark, just from the glow of its eyes in the dark. And you just think, how on earth did you see that? How did you manage to pick that up? You know, their eyes are so well trained, and definitely they will spot a lot more than what any of us would spot just driving on your own.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
definitely for me worth it. It's just definitely worthwhile doing a private game experience.
Yeah, sure. Thank you,
Yeah.
Nikki. Thanks for your sharing today. And we have some questions that's coming in. And we have one from JP. Yeah. So JP was just asking, how are all those places faring now with the pandemic situation, business and safety wise? Yeah. So it's like a hot question, right?
It is. Yeah. South Africa, I mean, the tourism industry in South Africa is really struggling at the moment, without a doubt. And I think it's global. I think it's not just in South Africa. But certainly with the pandemic, currently the situation here is that domestic tourism is also still, domestic leisure tourism is also still closed down. And as you know, our international borders are still closed. So yeah, these lodges are struggling, and tourism is going through quite a rough time. We still, it's expected that we'll hit our COVID peak in around August, July, end of, now about August. So we are really hopeful that the government will open up domestic tourism maybe in October, and we're really pushing hard to have our borders open by the end of the year so that we can December, January is our summer season, tends to be the peak season in tourism, and we really are hopeful that borders will open up then.
Yeah.
So the other thing, Julian, that is really hard in South Africa, and I think it's something that's often overlooked, is that the tourism industry is really the industry that is supporting the local communities in South Africa. So bordering on a lot of these reserves, you've got small rural communities, and they are basically employed by the lodges, and it's the lodges that look after these local communities. So it's the lodges that are basically taking care of the schools and the clinics, and the old age homes. Without with our hospitality industry, with the lodges not able to open and earn income at the moment, it impacts directly on the local communities as well, which is quite a problem.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, just hope that I think everyone knows that the tourism industry is actually the biggest employer in the world. It hires the most people, and a lot of people actually depend on it for survival. So yeah, folks, when you can and it's safe enough to do so, please consider South Africa as a destination, because it's a complete destination for you to visit, and it encompasses everything. Yeah. So thank you, Ian. Yeah, sure. Ian replies and says, sure, he's definitely looking at that. And I'm sure there's also a lot of our friends here who has been there, and they will want to go back again and again, and that's what it is. Yeah. So even JP and yeah, So yeah, do we have any other questions that is coming in? Any other questions? We are just on the hour mark, actually. Everything ends quite nice, yeah, on time. Yeah. And we just like to see if we have other questions. And I hope we have not missed out any other questions, because while you are giving the presentation, I have answered quite a number of them. Yeah, by just typing into the chat. Okay, so in terms of safety wise, actually South Africa is safe, yeah. So I have been there many times, and a lot of the times I'm there myself and I drive. And also from a perspective of like a Singaporean, I drive, and certain places where you can't drive, you park your vehicle at, like for example, the lodge, or where the lodge will allow you to park. So you park your vehicle there for a few days, and then you'll be taken care of. Yeah, so I have not encountered any problem, but also the thing is that generally, I think when you travel, you just try to be a little bit more vigilant and pay attention to your surrounding, and try not to be too adventurous, like going out yourself at night to somewhere, where it's not being recorded as safe or things like that. So I think that is just common sense in everyone that we were actually just looking into that. Okay, so yeah, I think we don't have any other questions coming in. Yeah, so with that, let me just thank you everyone for coming by today, and we hope that you will have a great week ahead. Don't forget that next week we are going to have another session again, okay, and that is basically how to optimize and perfect your Safari experience. Okay, yeah, so remember next Monday, and do look out for the invites and please sign up accordingly. Yeah, and thank you everyone. Good night. And if there's no questions, we'll just end the session today. And thank you, Nikki. Yeah, thanks for your talk again today. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye. Yeah. Till the next one. Yes. Yeah. Bye bye.